Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
I welcome you to yet another biological session. I remain your tutor. I'm Oshitogun Olajide, aka Smoking Brain. And as you all know, this program is powered by Fusion Mobile e-learning platform. So today, we're going to be looking at the topic aquatic habitat. Now, under this, we're going to be looking at the following outlines. What is an aquatic habitat? We're going to be looking at the types, and we're going to be looking at the characteristics of each. So follow me closely. The first question is, what is an aquatic habitat? Now, before now, I've been able to establish that there are basically three types of habitat. We said we have terrestrial habitat, we have aquatic habitat, and we have arboreal habitat. So I said I could still remember clearly that terrestrial habitat talks about life on land. Aquatic habitat talks about life in water. Arboreal habitat talks about life on trees. It deals with flight organisms, so to speak. So now today we'll be dealing extensively with aquatic habitat. Aquatic habitat is a body of water where certain organisms live. Again, aquatic habitat is a body of water where certain organisms live. For the last time, aquatic habitat is a body of water where certain organisms live. Now, what are the types of aquatic habitat that we have got? And now we basically have three types of aquatic habitat. We have the marine habitat, which is also known as saltwater. We have the estuarine habitat, which is known as the brackish water. And lastly, we have the freshwater habitat. I take it again. We have three types of habitats. We have three types of habitats. For the last time, we have three types of habitat. And now the first one is the marine habitat, also known as the saltwater. We have the estuarine habitat, also known as the brackish water. And lastly, we have got the freshwater habitat. Now we're going to be looking at these three types of habitat extensively, ranging from the marine to the estuarine to the freshwater habitat. So I need you to pay proper attention to this. Now let's look at the marine habitat. Now, one key characteristic of the marine habitat is that the water body has high salt content. The water body has high salt content. Now, it will suffice you to know that majority of the people out there have come in contact with this marine habitat. Some came in contact with them as a result of a visit, a trip, so to speak, or a kind of excursion, as the case may be. Now, what are the marine water bodies that we have? The marine water bodies that we have are oceans, lakes, and sea. The marine water bodies that we have are oceans, lake, and sea. Now, as I've said earlier, the key characteristics of oceans, lakes, and sea is that they have high salt content. Now, let's look at the characteristics one after the other. What is salinity? Salinity simply means the concentration of salt in a water body. It is measured using the salinometer. Again, salinity is the concentration of salt in a water body. Now, marine water or marine habitat, as the case may be, has what? High salt content compared to any other, compared to estuarine or fresh water. Now, let's look at the size. Now, marine water or marine habitat has the largest size, so to speak. Marine habitat has the largest size. The largest of all water bodies is the ocean, and it is a representative family of the marine. Now, what are the examples of oceans that we have? We have the Indian Ocean, we have the Atlantic Ocean, and we have the Pacific Ocean. I'm quite sure you've come in contact with that. You've come across those words. And now we have pressure. What happens to pressure as regards marine habitats? Now, pressure increases with depth in the marine habitat. On the surface, if for example now pressure is 50 millimeter mercury, as you go deep down, let's say 200 meter, pressure can be 1,500 millimeter. As you go deeper and deeper, it increases. Pressure increases with depth in the marine habitat. Now let's look at oxygen. What happens to oxygen in the marine habitat? Oxygen at the surface of the marine habitat is very high, but as you go deep, it decreases. So oxygen decreases with depth in the marine habitat. Don't forget, pressure increases with depth, while oxygen decreases with depth in the marine habitat. Now lastly, we have density. Now the marine habitat has greater density. Density simply talks about the size, the mass. So it has greater what? Density. Now let's look at the animals that colonize the marine habitat. The animals that could be seen in the marine habitat, we have the periwinkles, we have the shrimps, we have the fishes, and lastly, we have the crabs, as the case may be. Now, what are the types of plants that can be seen in the marine habitat? We have the seaweed, and there's one peculiarity of seaweed. Seaweed has a structure called the holdfast. It is called the holdfast. It is with this structure that they get to clinch themselves to a support system in the water body. And when the current is coming and it's about to throw them away, they hold something. So that structure is called what? Holdfast. So aside from seaweed, we have algae. Now, one major attribute of algae is that they can photosynthesize even in the water body. We have plankton such as diatoms. Planktons are small organisms in the water body. Now, let's look at the zones that are present in the marine water. There are basically 6 types of zones. The first zone that you get to see is called the splash zones. The splash zone or the supratidal zone. The splash zone or the supratidal zone. That is the zone that you get to see, the top zone. Now, this zone is constantly connected to the sunlight. So, at this zone, there is what? Great photosynthetic activities going on. Now, after the splash zone, we have the intertidal zone. The intertidal zone is seen at low wave. Now, when the water is coming, basically, the intertidal zone is covered. But when the water is going backward, the part that you see is called the intertidal. At low wave, it is seen. At high wave, it is covered. Aside from it, and also in the intertidal, photosynthetic activities take place. There is light penetration, great light penetration in the intertidal. Now, when we come down to subtidal, there is also what? Great amount of light penetration. The subtidal is also called littoral zone. Take note, the zone is 200 millimeter. The zone is 200 meter away from the what? Above. Away from the top surface. Now, if you get to a water body like the ocean, now this is the top surface. If you go 200 meter deep, at that particular point where you are, we call it what? The littoral zone. So the littoral zone is 200 meter away from the top surface. Now, listen up. Splash, intertidal, subtidal, they have light penetration. But the light penetration decreases with depth. Light penetration decreases with depth. The light penetration is the greatest at the splash zone because that is the outermost zone. Now, when you go deep down, light penetration is present, but it decreases. When it comes to subtidal, it is present, but it decreases. But when it gets to benthic, it decreases greatly. Now, benthic is located 500 meter away from the surface. The benthic zone, it has what? It has lower light penetration. And whenever there is lower light penetration, photosynthetic activities will be reduced. Nutrients will also be what? Reduced. Now, aside from the benthic, we have the pelagic zone. The pelagic zone is located at 7,000 meters away from the top surface. The light penetration is very low, and so photosynthetic activities is very, very low, and nutrients is also what? Very low. The last phase is called the aphotic zone. The word aphotic means having no light. Aphotic, opposite of light. Are you with me? Aphotic zone is the base. It's the ground floor of the ocean. Aphotic zone. It has no light penetration at all. It is located at a location that is what? Above 7,000 meters from the top surface. Again, we have the splash zone, intertidal, subtidal, we have the benthic, the pelagic, and lastly, we have the aphotic zone. Now, it's sufficient to know that zones can actually be classified again based on the on light penetration. On the basis of light penetration, we have the euphotic zone. This zone is constantly connected to the sunlight. There is abundance of sunshine on it. We call it what? Euphotic. The word U means through. Euphotic zone. We have diphotic zone. This particular place enjoys little amount of light. So we call that place dimness. They enjoy the dimness of light, like how do I say it? Like the back surface of light, not the full surface. Then aside from the diphotic, we have the aphotic zone. They experience total darkness. So take note, they experience total sunshine. Here they experience partial sunshine, and here they experience no sunshine at all. So we call it aphotic zone, we call it euphotic zone, and we call it what? Diphotic zone. So we have been able to establish the fact that oceans, lake, and sea are marine habitat. And one key characteristic of marine habitat is that they have high salt content, and that's why they are called salt water. Now, having established this fact, I will now move on to the next one, which is known as what? The estuarine habitat. Okay, so now we'll be looking at estuarine habitat. We've established several facts on our marine habitat, also known as the saltwater habitat. So we will now be discussing on estuarine habitat. Now, it's sufficient to know that the mixing of salt water the mixing of salt water and fresh water. You know salt water is what? Thank you, marine. The mixing of salt water and fresh water is called, the point at which they mix is called brackish water. So this brackish water is called what? Estuarine. Estuarine. Where salt water comes in contact with fresh water and they mix together, the point at which they meet, the point at which they get to corroborate. At that particular point, the water that results is called brackish water. And this water is known as what? Estuarine. So estuarine is an inflow of salt water and fresh water together. Are you with me? So the point at which fresh water and salt water meet is known as what? An estuarine. An estuarine habitat. Now we're going to be looking at the characteristics of what? Estuarine. Now there's something about estuarine habitats. Are you with me? When we talk about their salinity, which is the salt concentration, at the mouth of the river, take note, the river is what? For fresh water. At the mouth of the river, salt concentration is lower. At the mouth of the sea, salt concentration is higher. Now at the river, and we have the sea. At the mouth of this sea, salt concentration is higher. At the mouth of this river, salt concentration is lower. Take note, both are going to connect to form the estuary. Both will connect to form the estuary. The salt concentration at the mouth of the river is lower compared to the salt concentration at the mouth of the sea. Now, it's also sufficient to know that the water that is present in the estuary, which is also called brackish water, is shallow in nature. It is shallow in nature. Again, it is shallow in nature. It is shallow in nature. Now, it also sufficient to know that there is high level of nutrients in the estuary. Take note, salt water and fresh water, they are mixing together. And salt water, because of the salt concentration, will support the growth of some plants, which we can call halophytes, while fresh water will also support the growth of some other plants. So it's sufficient to know that there is high level of nutrients in the brackish water, also called estuary. And lastly, there is low concentration of oxygen in the estuary. Now, what kind of plants do we get to see in the estuary? We get to see planktons, we get to see algae, and we get to see mangrove. There are basically two mangroves that are found in the estuaries. Two mangroves. We have the red mangrove and we have the white mangrove. The white mangrove is called Abyssinia nitida. Abyssinia nitida is known as the white mangrove. The red mangrove is known as Resmosa. Resmosa is a red mangrove. White mangrove is called Abyssinia nitida. Now, aside from the plants, what animals can be seen in the estuary? We have the crabs, we have the fishes, and we have the mud skippers. And so now let's move on. What are the types of estuaries that we have? There are basically three types of estuaries. There are basically three types of estuaries. Can we just go? There are basically three types of estuaries. We have the delta, we have the bay, and we have the lagoon. Now, a delta is not delta state here. The delta we're talking about, it's the channels of a river. The channels that connect a river to the sea. The channel that connect a river to the ocean, so to speak. Now, if this is a river, hypothetically, the river branches into several segments. It branches into several segments before it gets into the ocean. And so this is the river. These are the channels before it gets here. These are the channels before it gets here. Now, this is the ocean. The various channels of a river that connect a river to the ocean. Take note, the ocean is a saltwater habitat. The river is a freshwater habitat. Now, what the channels that connect a river to the ocean, or the channel that empties the river into the ocean, is called delta. So delta is the river having several channels connecting to the ocean. We'll call it delta. So now let's move forward. Let's look at bay. Bay. What is bay? What is bay? Now, bay simply means a water body called ocean branching into the land. A bay is simply, what do we call it? We call bay. Okay, I will show you the structure, so to speak. Okay, so bay is a small portion of the sea which enters into the land and branches into the stream. Now this is the sea, the small portion of the sea which gets into the land. The small portion of the sea, let me get the drawing. The small portion of the sea is branches into the land. Now this is a stream. This is another stream. We have two streams, a stream here, another stream. Are you with me? So when the sea branches into the land, this is the land, it branches into the land and gets connected to the stream. We'll call it what? Bay. A small portion of the sea. A small portion of the sea. Sea is a representative family of salt water that enters into the land and branches straight into the stream. We'll call it what? Bay. B-A-Y. It is called bay. B-A-Y. It is called bay. So lastly, we're going to be looking at lagoon. Lagoon. Now lagoon talks about a water body called ocean branching into the land. Now most times, places where there are lagoons are called island. Island. Now if, for example, now this is an ocean. Okay, let me get the diagram for this. Okay, so we call it island. Now this is a lagoon. The water body is coming from the ocean and it's going straight into the land. So we call it what? A lagoon. Now take note, a lagoon, it's bigger in size and even longer than the bay. Bay is B-A-Y. So the types of estuarine are delta. The delta branching into the oceans, having several channels. We have the bay, and the bay is basically seawater branching into stream. Small seawater branching into stream, we call it bay. While lagoon talks about ocean branching into land. When they follow a particular channel, they branch into land. Now areas where there are lagoons, they are called islands. Just like the Victoria Island, because of the presence of lagoons that are present over there. So we've been able to establish the types of estuarine, delta, bay, lagoons. We've been able to establish their characters. I said at the mouth of the river, salt concentration is low, and at the mouth of the sea, salt concentration is high. It has low oxygen concentration, it has high nutrients, and the water there is shallow. We've talked about the plants such as plantains, algae, and mangrove, the red mangrove and the white mangrove. We'll talk about the animals such as crabs, fishes, and mud skippers. And so now basically we're going to be looking at the last one, which is fresh water, and it's going to be so interesting. Freshwater. So what is a freshwater habitat? A freshwater habitat has low salt concentration. It is not marine that has high salt concentration. A freshwater habitat has so low salt concentration. Examples of freshwater habitat rather are rivers, streams, and springs. Rivers, streams, and springs. They are actually more than this, but I just get short in it. We have rivers, we have stream, and we have spring. Now, how do we classify freshwater? Now, freshwater are classified based on the mobility of the water body. The word mobility talks about movement. Based on the movement of the water body, we have the lotic and the what? The lentic. Lotic simply means flowing water, water that is flowing. While lentic means stagnant water, water that stays in a particular place and is not moving. Again, lotic means flowing water. Lentic means stagnant water. Examples of lotic are rivers, spring, and stream. Rivers are moving, springs are moving, and streams are what? Moving. Example of lentic is your dam, your ponds. Dams and ponds are what? Lentic. Are you doing? Now the lotic can also be classified into two. The lentic as well can be classified into two. The lotic is classified into the littoral and the benthic zone. The littoral and the what? The benthic zone. The littoral is very, very shallow, while the benthic talks about the deep part, the bottom part, the base part of the sea, the base part of the fresh water. What do I mean by the base part of the freshwater? The deepest part of the freshwater. Take note, lotic is divided into littoral and benthic. Littoral is the shallow part, the part that you can easily see. Why benthic is the deepest part. Now, aside from the lotic, what the lenthic? The lenthic is subdivided into the pool zone and the rapid zone. The pool zone and the rapid zone. The pool zone is just like your swimming pool. The water there are stagnant. They are just staying. While the rapid zone, the water there are moving very, very fast. Are you with me? So we have the pool zone and we have the rapid zone. Now let's look at the characteristics. As I said earlier, they have low soil nutrients. They are smaller in size. Low soil nutrients, they are smaller in size, and they have high oxygen throughout. For marine, oxygen is high at the surface and low as you go deeper, but for freshwater, oxygen is high throughout. What are the kind of plant that can be seen in the freshwater? We have the spirogyra and we have the water lily. Water lily is Nymphia lotus. We also have the water hyacinth, Econia crescipes, and other organisms that can be found there. Now, what are the types of animals that could be seen? We have the hydra and we have the tilapia. Now, it's been a very wonderful time out with you. Some questions will pop up on your screen. Try as much as possible to go through it. I remain my humble self. I'm Olajide. Peace out.